All right. Hello. Let's go ahead and do a mic check. Can you hear us okay? Andy was doing stuff in the last moment. I was like, we're about to go live, so maybe you shouldn't be doing that. But we're glad to have you here. I'm only here for a brief time. I didn't even think I was going to make it today, but I'm glad to have you guys all checking in. We got folks from Texas and Asheville, North Carolina, and Arkansas, and Vancouver, British Columbia.
I lived in Vancouver for a while.
He really likes seeing that. The Mojave Desert, and lots of other places. So thank you guys for popping in early. And thank you for confirming that the sound sounds okay. And today, while I have a few minutes before I head off, our little Missy had a swim meet a few weeks ago, and she dropped sometimes, and she held firm on some others. And she said, Mom, can you hurry up and drive 5.5 hours back to Los Alamos because I want to go to a birthday party? And I was like, okay, sure. So she went to the birthday party and everything was great. And she jumped on a trampoline and sprained her ankle. And now we have to go to the University of New Mexico to have it checked out, which is 2 hours away. Anyway, and in 2 weeks, I will be gone to another swim meet 5.5 hours away, so it'll be a solo again. It just seems like those live streams aren't agreeing with me of late. So we thought we'd have a little fun, but I don't even think I welcomed y'all. Howdy, welcome to Family History Fanatics. My name is Devin Noel Lee, and this is my amazing husband, Andy. We've been married for 20 plus years, and later on, he's going to tell you about our crazy trip to Europe that we have planned.
We're not going to tell him right now?
Well, sure, right now. You go ahead and start yapping.
Well, I got to have stuff to yap about.
You do have stuff. There you go. You can add
to the stream. Dun, dun, dun.
And then Gigan, Robin S., you're from Houston. Oh, man. Last weekend, I was in Alaska. And we were hoping, let me hide this hide this. So I was in Alaska. He was spending the kids. And Aggie Muster was last weekend, but we couldn't find anyone doing Aggie Muster in Alaska. So softly called semester, comments answer here for anyone who isn't Aggie. And now going on to your little chitty chat chat. There you go.
There I go. All right. So we told you before about our trip this summer. So for those of you who didn't hear or didn't know, we're going to Europe with the kids for a couple of weeks.
But 2 of the kids, not all 5, just 2.
That's right. Now, just so you know, the only other place that I've ever been in Europe is Thetford, right here in England.
Is that Crooked Town?
No.
Huh.
That's Lavenham, which is somewhere around here because Ely we went to, Cambridge we went to. Uh-huh. But yeah, Crooked Town is somewhere around there.
I nicknamed it Crooked Town because when you look at it, picture the houses, they're all crooked and leaning over they look like they're about to collapse. So if you know the Crooked Town
400 years ago.
I know, but it's cool that they're even standing
crooked.
up.
But we're not going to England.
We're not going to England.
And Devin's never been to Europe before.
Nope.
Nowhere in Europe. So we're going to the Netherlands, as you can see, all these little dots here. And we're going to take a little trip down to Belgium, to Antwerp, because it's close. And then over to Germany. And hopefully one of the things we're going to be able to do is go to one of the little towns that Devin's ancestors are from, called Gillersheim, in the middle of nowhere, Germany.
But an update for those of you who are like praying that I can actually get in contact him. Well, the pastor only goes there every 2 weeks. So I need to reach out to the secretary and hopefully she'll respond.
And then up to Hamburg and over to Copenhagen and Malmo. So we'll hit Denmark and Sweden. And then we're going to actually stop in Odense on the way back. And that's because that's where Hans Christian Andersen was born.
Yeah.
And so might as well get some, little history there. And then we're taking a side trip here. Side trip to Finland. And in Finland in particular, I got to zoom out just so you can see where we're going to be in Finland. Helsinki's down here on the southern part of Finland, which is already farther north than Oslo or Stockholm.
Or Alaska? Anchorage?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Helsinki's about on par with Anchorage.
Oh, okay.
Well, we're going to be actually driving 5 hours north. Dun, 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 dun.
Good thing we're used to 5 hours drive.
To this little town called Sonkajarvi. I hope I'm saying that right. Where they have the World Championship wife carrying competition every year. Cool. Well, if you'll notice here, we are registered for the World Championship wife carrying competition.
Yeah, nobody can read that.
Well, you know.
There we go.
And not only that, we are the only entrant right now in the senior competition. So if no one else enters, we are going to take home the gold for seniors.
What the heck is that, though?
That is what I wanted to know myself. And so I looked it up. That is Finnish for United States. It looks like somebody just, you know, slapped down some letters. Because I was looking here because like I knew that Suomi is Finnish for Finland. I hadn't heard of Alankomat. That's a pretty cool name for the Netherlands. Saksa, that's Germany. Puolo, that's Poland. That actually sort of sounds like Poland. Britannia, okay, that's Great Britain.
Isle.
But then, you see this. I'm not even sure how you say that.
Okay.
I don't know if you're Finnish and you can tell me how to say the United States. But that's one of the things when we go over there is I'm going to figure out, I'm going to ask somebody, how do you say United States in Finnish? Because when I saw this, I thought somebody had just, you know, slammed some keys on the keyboard because that's what it looks like. Although now that I'm looking at it, there's too many vowels, except that there's 2 Y's there.
Where's the picture page?
Oh, the picture page.
Just so people get an idea of what this wife carrying Oh, there you go. There you go.
There you go.
I do not put my head in the water like that.
Photos. So yeah, this is cool. So if you'll notice here, there's different ways of carrying, and so this is called Estonian carry. Now this pool is like a meter deep. Well, if you'll notice where the wife's head is hitting, and you'll see, you know, lots of water dripping off. There, that's a good one. That's right. If you're doing Estonian carry, then, you know, the wife gets to be in the water when you go through the water obstacle. And so you have some people that they do a modified there so that they're not dunking in the water. Others, they just take it, you know, and hold their breath for that 10 seconds. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just showing you everything.
So that's what we're doing this summer. And we've said before that if you are living in one of those areas that we're visiting and you want to meet up with us, then send us a message and we'll be happy to arrange a time that we can meet up. The husband calling competition. Ooh, where is the husband calling competition? I actually think I might have heard of that, but never, you know, went into that. So Marion, if you know where this husband calling competition is, then let me know, because is that in Finland also? Are we gonna have to take another trip to Finland?
I don't know.
Because that will be you that's like doing the husband calling competition, and I have to figure out who you are. Or I don't know.
This is how it goes. Hey, baby.
Oh yeah.
See, we're done. That's not what you came here for. We were giving people a chance to join us. We're actually going to talk about.
Okay, Stacy says you cannot be old enough to be a senior. You are only a few years older than me. Okay, correct, Stacy. I think we are only a few years older. But for the wife carrying competition, the senior division starts at age 40. My guess is because once you get to 60 or 70 or 80, there's not many people that are carrying their wives.
True. And we will get it on video. Remember, we're taking our 2 kiddos with us. And
yes.
Their responsibility is to take video.
Take pictures. And there's two different stands, you know, so you can see different parts. I mean, the track, it's 250 meters long, which in American units is like, what, 5 miles or something? I don't know what meters are. But, and it just is like a little S shape. And so it's like really compact. In fact, when you...
Sorry. Well, we won't talk about this now, but I actually do need to lose some COVID weight. Thank you for that super
every pound she loses is one less pound I have to carry.
And then just so you know, we really need to get a list of all these funky little bucket list things to talk. The wife carrying is at the Iowa State Fair.
The husband calling.
I'm sorry. The husband calling. But anyway, we might have to do that too.
Maybe that's where I heard about it, is when we lived in Iowa. But I just never looked into it more.
Yeah. So anyway, you guys can't wait to see it. We can't wait to do it.
We will post videos. Okay. Don't worry. It will be on the channel. It will be fun.
Yes. But today's topic was have you found your ancestors in uncommon sources? And I put a little poll on the YouTube community page. So if you are following us, you should be able to go either on mobile or desktop and go to the community tab, click on it, you'll find the poll. About 47 people said yes, and they proceeded to 47% told me about their fun things below. Some people said no, only common records. And then others said, I'm not sure. And then they went ahead and included some details about that as well. So we'll go to those in a little bit. Before we go to that, actually, I wanted to highlight one really, really quickly. I think it was here. No, it was somebody came in early. It was JD Cooper. I found a relative in a dog license registration in Ireland. And I thought, I've heard of the dog registration, at least somewhere in the United Kingdom, because I made a YouTube video about 10 cool UK collections. And I just dropped the link in the show notes. 10 cool UK record collections on Ancestor you must check out. So I thought these were cool or lesser used or just pretty awesome. And one of them includes a dog license. So go JD Cooper for being successful in finding his ancestors in not necessarily that one, but in something similar. So anyway, for now, we're going to have Andy go ahead and talk about some cool record collections he used to find Larry Elder.
No,
you're gonna have to tell
Larry
people.
Elder.
I thought you said it wasn't Larry Elder.
It's not Larry Elder.
It's not that Larry Elder.
No, it's not Larry Elder
Mr.
at all.
Elder.
It's Mr. Elder.
Mr. Elder. I always get confused. You talked about Mr. Elder. Oh, and then the other thing is in the link in the description box, there is a link to a presentation he did of how to find strangers in your pajamas. And he was looking for Mr. Not Larry Elder. And you can find that link below. So go ahead and share with us a few of the uncommon sources that you found Mr. Not Larry Elder.
Okay.
And then go ahead and tell us, his name is Joe Elder. Okay.
Let me...
And in the meantime, you can go ahead and share some of your uncommon records that you found people in. Now, common tends to be census records, city directories, vital records. Those are the three most people think of. If you're a fan of the Family History Fanatics, you should also know that newspapers should top your list on common records, especially now that they're digitized in lots of places and it makes them easier to search. So those would be the four I would consider the most common. And in many formerly British Commonwealth countries, city directories are pretty popular in those locations too. So they're not only people are aware of them or should be, but they're common across most cultures. Are you ready yet?
Well, yeah, sort of, kind of.
Okay.
So let me show a page here.
I was stalling.
You were stalling.
I was.
So this was a teacher of mine, and you said there's the link to the presentation, right?
Yeah, it's in the description box.
So this was a teacher of mine that I made a presentation based on, hey, what can you find about somebody that you don't know hardly anything about? And in this case, I started with, I knew his name was Mr. Elder. I knew he had died a couple years after I graduated from high school. Obviously, I knew that he lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he taught at the high school there. And that was about all that I really knew about him. Okay. And so it took me a while here. First off, I was doing all sorts of searches and coming up with Larry Elder, who's a famous commentator, which is not who I was looking for. And so eventually I was looking in, Elder, Union High School, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And let's see if I can find.
He hasn't done this presentation in a little while.
I know.
And I pulled him on the spot. I was like, tell me the 3 cool ones that you found real quick. Because I kind of can do that. No. Stumped again.
Stumped again, yeah. So let me do this, though, because I can find the collection here once I find this. So let me look for Andrew Lee with Union High School. Hopefully there's not another Andrew Lee that's doing this. That's just the high school. Andrew C. Lee.
There's a teacher.
But that's at St. Paul. Oh, where is it?
Oh, I wonder if things have changed since the last time we searched.
Things have probably changed. So let's go to, because what this was the, what would you call them? The high school or the school district newsletters at Union Public Schools. And let's just look for the newsletters here. In any case, at one point, man, they just got everything now.
Mind you,
it was a lot easier to look for stuff 5 years ago. What it was is I found a newsletter from 1974, 5 or something, with Mr. Elder in it, and then it had his name as Joe Elder, and obviously he was 20 years younger than when I knew him, but people's faces don't necessarily change that much, and so he was besides being a teacher, he was also the coach of the girls soccer team, and another couple things on that. But from that, I thought, well, I went to Union High School, and so I searched for myself on Union High School, and ended up finding me on the same newsletter, obviously in 1993, 94 timeframe. Are you looking for the?
You just keep yapping.
And so this was a set of the high school newsletters that they basically had 20, 30 years just sitting on their website as far as their archive for it. And so really, if you knew anybody that went to the high school or any teacher that taught at the high school or anything like that, then you could go through this collection and you could find out some interesting things about them. What are you looking for there?
Oh, I was answering a question.
Oh, okay.
That's why I just keep talking.
Oh, I thought you'd said you had the link there.
No, that's the link to your presentation. Someone said they couldn't find it in the description box. And
I'm trying to look myself. We're going to have to pull up the actual presentation and find if I have the links in there.
Anyway, so just keep going.
I'm trying. I don't know what to fill in stuff.
I was just telling somebody that in the okay, you keep
wait, go. Stop right there. Okay, what did I have? Aha, there. Okay, let me find.
Link in the description box for the presentation he was talking about. It's called Finding Strangers in Your Pajamas, and it should be right after the description of the this video, and then you'll see Finding Strangers in Your Pajamas, and then you'll see the link. So
files site.
Watch it all change.
Yeah.
Now, how many times do you go to a website and you've saved a URL in your genealogy program or in your notes, and then you go back to it, and it's not there.
1982.5% 27.9.PDS 27.9.PDF. Let's see if it's still there. No. They've moved it.
Okay, you keep talking about something else, and I'll see if I
can
find it.
Anyway, in this case, all I did was just go looking for stuff on Google and ended up on this website. Do that search.
Give me a second.
and found something that was, not on any genealogy website, obviously, because this was just the school system's website.
Don't keep talking.
Yeah.
School website. And what else was cool about it?
So there was that. And like I said, I found myself and my brother on that website as well in that list. Some other places was there was a what do you call it?
Yeah, I just wanted to show you real quickly. So when you did this presentation a while ago, here was the search engine. Elder plus Union High School plus Tulsa, but not in brackets. And I do that. And of course, they changed all of their search engine strategies, which is a pain in the neck, right? And so while he's talking, I'm going to keep looking.
Joseph, look up Joseph Elder.
I will look up Joseph Elder. You keep talking.
I'm talking.
There was a couple other things that he found. Tulsa Union members of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and this was on the former Roots Web.
Roots Web's been shut down now, right? I think it actually. There. I thought I heard that it was actually shut down.
You guys can let us know in the chat what is your experience with the Roots Web. I thought it got absorbed kind of into it.
Well, I know it was absorbed, but I think they killed it finally. Or at least it's going to be killed this year. But anyway, yeah, so there's that where there was a little obituary type of thing that gave some others. So I knew that he had been a member of the Sons of the Confederate Veterans because he'd said something like that in one of the classes. And actually, he was very interested in genealogy, and we talked about, some of this stuff. And so I reached out to the chapter up in Tulsa of the Sons of the Confederate Veterans, and they answered me back and got me in touch with a couple of people that actually knew Mr. Elder. Anything?
I think they've taken him off.
No.
No.
Why would they do that?
I don't know. They go and rechange websites, so they're taking off all the newsletters and the PDFs. They're not available anymore. So. So what's the moral of this story?
Anyway, go show this. That was fun? Yeah. So this was from the newsletter. It's in the presentation that I tell you about. And there's Mr. Elder and employee of the month, actually. No, he's educator of the month. But yeah, so what was cool about this is I learned some other things about him that I didn't know. So so he taught history and stuff. Escorting students to movies and plays depicting major events and histories. I didn't know about that, and they might have not done that near as much. Okay, so I knew what year this was, and it was, hey, he'd been employed for 7 years. Well, that gave me an idea then of when he would have potentially graduated from college and stuff, which helped me to know roughly when he was born to start looking for when he was born. Currently sponsors the History Club, originated the high school soccer club, and served as the PTSA committee for book sales. Pretty cool.
Yeah. So, the communicator. But look, okay, so here is the moral of the story. Okay. Finding uncommon things, finding things on websites. You want to save enough information, such as a source citation. So we have the title, The Communicator, Volume 9, Number 7, published by Museum Public Schools, May 1982. And then it would be really nice if we knew the page number so that if we ever go, you moved your newsletters and Google isn't finding them anymore because Google changed the algorithm, then you would be able to get it. Now you can also save copies of, like, I always like to save the copy of the article.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd it go? Right there. The copy of the article and then have the citation. But you could also consider doing a copy, if it's like in a newsletter or in a book, save that title page or the cover page. That way, if you go to the Union Public School and say, where is this newsletter? You can actually show them what you're talking about rather than that little clipping.
I was seeing if I put I have the copy of me in it saved somewhere. But yeah, so that was one of the oddball things. Another was there was I went through all sorts of people, found out about this little town over in eastern Oklahoma where he was born. Yes. Okay. There was this small town newspaper where this is his dad that had the obituary there in it. And it was only in this little small town newspaper from Havener, Oklahoma, or Howe, Oklahoma, or whatever the city was. And it wasn't on one of these big newspaper sites. Like it wasn't on newspapers.com. It wasn't on the congressional whatever libraries newspaper site. This was on Chronicling America.
It's probably on. So one of the uncommon resources that this would probably fall in under is the town, cities, historical sites, anything that is lesser known. So you sometimes have to figure out a town and then go to the town resource pages to try to research it. Now I'll tell you when you have a problem. And maybe you guys can help me figure out how to solve this problem.
Uh-oh.
So there is a town, and I'm going to type it because I'm probably butchering it. Okay. There is a town called Sabinoso, New Mexico, or Sabinosa, New Mexico. Okay. And it is in a county very, very close to Santa Fe.
Oh, it's
not in Santa Fe. It's because I'm doing it on the fly. I can't remember it, but I have it in my research notes. But this town was listed in the 1880 census. And I reached out to the County Historical Society. I read it up to the county government. Nobody is telling me where it just disappeared. It is now part of the Sabinoso Wilderness area in New Mexico. So somehow that property got bought up by the federal government. And I did find on Internet Archive about this little wilderness area and how they mapped it out. And what the problem is it's surrounded by houses. There's no entry point to really take care of this national wilderness forest area.
So is it in San Miguel?
In San Miguel County, thank you. I couldn't remember it. I was going to say Roy.
Is it near Las Vegas?
No, it's actually towards where the L is.
Okay. So over here where there's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there were land grant records about it. There's all kinds of things. But the only thing I found about possibly what happened to the Sabinoso is because it became a wilderness area. So anyway, yeah, sometimes you can find these county things and sometimes you can reach out to resources, but sometimes they're not very helpful. So you just have to keep putting on hats. But,
so here real quick, here's Santa Fe. There's Mosquero, but that's in the next county over. You're talking like in one of these green areas right here.
Yes.
Sabinoso Wilderness area.
There you go. Did you find it?
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah, it's all surrounded by homes. There's no entry point roads into this area. And so what happened to the town? What happened to the people? What happened to the records? I don't know. And I can't figure it out. And the county officers don't know either. So I've had that happen to a graveyard too.
Yeah. I mean, looking at this, it looks like there was a road. See, look at it. There's like some roads that are oddballs.
I'm not sharing. Okay, hold on.
Oh, whoops.
Thank you. We always do this. Okay, so we'll go back. We'll go back to what you had before.
Okay, so this is.
Thank you, Stacy.
So yeah, Santa Fe right here, and this area right here is the Sabinoso Wilderness area that Sabinoso was in somewhere or somewhere around here.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, so that goes back to, so we have local history locations, but the hard thing to do is when you have towns that disappear. Okay, so do you want to talk about some of the, I have to leave in a minute. So the daughter is texting, we need to leave, and I have 1 minute. Let's go to.
Yep, I'm showing stuff.
Okay, you're showing stuff. You're showing
Is that not what I'm supposed to show?
Well, you also have, there were 3 more, but we didn't get to the 3 because we had some problems. But anyway, I wanted to share just a couple of them real quick before I'm out of here. Let's go to hide this. So Ronna Miller, she said, common, uncommon can also mean not utilized in maps. And she said county history is what fan clubs help me determine birth location of a subject, which is always very helpful. And guess what? I did a video called 10 websites to find your ancestors in digitized books. So I'm going to put that on screen real quick. It's in the chat. Later, I'll make sure that I put it in the description box. But yeah, make sure that you're researching all the different book collections online. You'd be surprised what kind of books you'd find. And then I wanted to go back to Pamela. There's my alarm. Yes. It's yelling at me. Pamela said tax records. Now, I don't believe people use tax records enough, and tax records are coming online for Canada, particularly Ontario, Canada. Super awesome. I'm super excited about tax records in Canada, and I still have a lot more to learn about those because there aren't exactly any helpful resources for those. But for U.S. tax record collections, I do have 2 videos about tax record collections. So that is my cue to get out of here. Andy, you are now at the helm to talk about the things people share, both in the live chat as well as over on our website. Bye, guys. We'll see you later.
Mess this all up while she goes. Okay, so Stace says, don't know if it's uncommon, but I found a lot of information about my family in church records. And yeah, church records are actually really good because there's the typical church records that we think of things like marriages or baptisms or burials that happen at churches. But also when you think about, okay, well, churches do just a lot of stuff. And so there might be records of sermons or records of, people that are being helped, or, what the church is doing as far as the building committee or things like that. And Stacy follows that up. In those church records, I found out that my great-great-grandfather and his father-in-law were deacons in the church at the same time, and that I am in currently, which is great because then now you have a great starting point as far as, well, one, what do the deacons do? What records are the deacons in? And you might be able to find some different things about your family that way. And every church is going to be different as far as what records they're keeping for that. And a lot of them you're not going to find other than at the church itself. So yeah, those church records are a very good set of records. All right. Marion McKinney says, I found a formerly enslaved relative in a Confederate Army pension servant application dated 1931. He was a cook and served alongside the slaveholder named in the application. Okay, that's great because that's going to be one of the few records that have that person prior to emancipation necessarily. And yeah, I like that. That's not something that you necessarily go looking for that, but recognizing that there's these different collections out there that might have that is important. So that's a one that I would never have thought of, but I didn't know existed because that was pretty specific of a servant application, not just the Confederate pension applications. Okay, Scorpion, I think this is a question actually. I'm tracing Irish famine ancestors found possible on 1846 ship list in New York City. They say Upper Canada as a destination. Did those ships continue on, or did they get off in New York City and take a train? Good question, and that I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know the answer to, because what I do know from, let's pull up a map. You know what? Yeah, let's pull up this map here. Okay, this one right here. Let's pop this up and let's do some little looking. So this is actually a video, but they got a nice map on it for us. Okay, so this is actually in the year 1787, but hey, here is, I just looked for shipping routes 1800s. And what you can see here is, okay, Ireland up top there. Let's zoom this in more even. You know, I wonder, do they have just the map? No, they don't. So Ireland up at the top here, which you would have ships that were going from Ireland, as well as ships that would maybe go and stop in England first and then go, or vice versa. And so the routes between England and Ireland are going to be roughly the same here. And you can see that, hey, there's this one gray that basically goes to New York City. Okay, it's almost a diagonal down across the ocean to get to New York City. Upper Canada was joined by the St. Lawrence River. And so there's actually another route that goes in through there down the St. Lawrence River. And so I would guess that if they were stopping in New York City, they probably weren't going on the boat to Upper Canada. They were probably taking a train that way. In fact, when my grandfather immigrated over in 1912, he landed in New York City, and then he was going to Los Angeles. But the first major stop with the train route was actually Niagara, Canada. And so he went up there and then across the little part of Canada back over into the United States and then on down, I think something like that. So I can see that there might have been a lot of people that actually took the passage over to New York City and then took passage up to Upper Canada that way, because it wasn't just a train at that time. You'd also had the Hudson River, which went up to, what is the, I don't know what the crossing is up there, but Montreal. It's near Montreal, Quebec. So there's that way into Canada. So there's actually a couple of different ways to get into Upper Canada from that. So yeah, I think it might not have been on the boat. They might have stopped in New York City and gone back up. And then there's a couple of people said, okay, well, Halifax is a common destination. Yep. You got to go up past Albany. Let me see some of these other ones right here. Okay, so going back onto the church records, a lot of people have typed in some different things they have seen. Directories of churches, they have the officers listed as well as the pastor. So just when you think about it, you know, maybe a small church might just have a pastor and maybe a secretary or something to go along with it. But if you're in any sizable church, and by sizable, I'm talking, you know, 50, 100, 200 people or more, then there's probably more than just the pastor there. There's probably, you know, some elders, deacons, whatever, for many Christian churches, or other assignments or employees that church has to help run everything. So that's something to be looking at. Bill says Quaker meeting records can also provide interesting information, including disciplinary measures. Yeah. Quaker records are great. So here's a question, since we're talking about Quakers there. So many Quakers have the same name. So when Thomas Lamb is mentioned, which one of the several in that record is it about in that area? I did not know that about Quakers, that they have a lot of the same names. So if anybody has some information on that, feel free to pipe in. Will says parish records in England, this is something that I'm very familiar with, are extensive and include information on the administration of the church and the parish lands and the roads, as well as the parishioners given charity or bequests. Yes, the parish records in England, and it all has to do with the government system set up in England, which was basically centered around the church for several hundred years. And so that parish church was not just the church, it was the local government as well. And so they handled everything. And like he says here, roads, you know, those taxes for roads, as well as taking care of the poor. All of that you can find in the English parish record. So if you do have ancestors from England, that is an excellent resource to be going to. Okay. All right. Ascertain says, here's another record set, is court docket records. These I have looked at in lots of different places. One, I looked at them in regards to Abraham Lincoln. I think this was for another presentation that I was giving about the census. And I had to get into, I was using Abraham Lincoln as the example. And so as part of that, I found a website that actually has all of Abraham Lincoln's court cases from when he was a circuit court lawyer. And some of these just are mundane things. Others of them are more substantial in that. But that's one place that I've looked at. Another was for some ancestors in New York. And this was back in the 1700s, I believe it was, late 1700s. Because at that time, you don't have standardized birth, marriage, death records, really. You didn't have census records that listed everybody, so that wasn't it. And so really, you're looking at any record possible. And in this case, this person, he had some run-ins with the law several times. And so I was reading over his court cases. And these were interesting because the records in courts were, recorded usually by a court recorder, and depending on how detailed they were at the time, they might provide a lot of information or just, the bare minimum. And in this case, this court reporter was actually really good and basically outlined the whole case as far as this assault, between him and this other guy, and who hit here, where, and, the testimony of different people and character witnesses, all this stuff that was really, really valuable, because it gave you a lot of information about this person that you're not going to get from a birth, marriage, death record. And that. So that is one place that you can always look, particularly if you have any kind of hint that, hey, this person had run-ins with the law. Now, usually there we're talking about, criminal things, or maybe if there was a lot of civil litigation, because in some cases, the only way that the laws had to handle something was a civil litigation. So you might have an estate that had something wrong with it, where you had one person in a household suing another person in the household. And it didn't necessarily mean that they were at odds with each other. It simply meant, as you go in and look at some of the laws, that was the only way legally to resolve whatever conflict that there was, and to be able to get stuff in the right person's name or other things like that. So that's actually interesting there as well with the court cases. This one, M. Diane Rogers. I did a talk a while ago on shocking genealogy secrets online with a friend. We looked for unique sources, and one of mine was about cattle brands. And the reason why I like this one here is I actually found a book about 6 months ago that was cattle brands of New Mexico, and it was something like this thick, 1,000 pages or so, the 6th edition. And basically it had, everything up to, I think it was, I want to say the late 90s, maybe even early 2000s, every cattle brand that was known and registered in New Mexico up to that time. If your family was into ranching and happened to be in New Mexico, then you're probably represented, or your family's represented somewhere in that book. So yeah, that was a great one there. Okay, let's see here. I got to go to the list here, and let me hide that. And let's see here. Let's go down this list a little bit and see what some of these were from the website here. In the Millyard Museum, on his toolbox, he used to write his job list during the paper shortage. So we have a record now that is a toolbox because of the paper shortage. That's That's not going to necessarily show up in any index. Yeah, you got to go look at the bottom of this toolbox or something like that. And I remember that here in Los Alamos. There's one of the houses here. Actually, there's several houses that they've turned into museums. And this is just from the scientists that were here in the 40s. And in one of them, they had the guy's desk. And this, I can't remember which one, but he was a Nobel Prize winner in chemistry or physics or something. But they had his desk, and in the drawer of his desk and all over the top of his desk, he'd scribble notes, scratch little notes and stuff. And it was all still there. And it was just amazing to see, some of it was just totally mundane. Others of it was, you could tell that he was working out some equation or something. And his desk happened to be the easiest thing to be able to record it on. And so that's another nice little source of information here. All right. Joaquin, I found information about my wife's family in a book that is the story of a traditional biscuit brand in the city of Rio de Janeiro, Biscoitus Globo. In this book, the story of a great uncle of my wife was narrated, and it helped me to obtain genealogy data on his family branch. Accompany histories might have some information that you are looking for. And now, I don't know what position this great uncle of his had in this company, but he made it into the book about this company. That's pretty neat. Nice source there. All right. I found ancestors' relatives by walking cemeteries and the website Find a Grave. Yep. All right. I like this from Susan. After asking multiple times for many years for anything about family history, I got 10 pages of documents in a file. Think about that. 10 pages when you're looking at, genealogy over your lifetime, how many pages you've looked at. And this person got 10 after all these times. But when my parents passed away, we cleaned out the house. There were literally piles of family history to go through. So obviously, whenever somebody passes away, there is family history there. Now, it might be what we typically think of as family history, or it might just be the things that have to do with their life that document things about them. Okay, here's another great one. Just a random Google search. Found a book that my husband's uncle and his wife were in. The book was written by one of her family members about life in Florida 100 years ago and all their struggles. It was so interesting and told us so much about them. I was also able to get in touch with the author and find out more information about them. I like that. Found them in the Chamber of Commerce, Archives of the Dutch Dairy Consultant or Consulate. Not typically where you would, but all of these different organizations that are being brought up here, they're all keeping records. And remember, there's very few records that are made for genealogy purposes. Almost all the records that we use are made for some other purpose. And we just happen to find genealogy information in them. So keep on looking. All right, walking the cemetery again. Biography books. Okay. I like that. Let's see. All right. I was looking for them. I knew they would be there. This is Stacy, but church records. And because of church records, I found out that my third great grandma went by Retta. So you found a different name, basically a nickname, rather than her full name. And that's the thing is most of our official documents are going to list full names as opposed to nicknames. So it's in getting into these other uncommon records that you're going to find, oh, they went by this or they went by that. And not her full name. She was also a charter member of a church, and her brother helped get established along with 6 others of the family. Found a passport of my great-grandfather's uncle issued in 1895 for sale on an online auction by searching for his surname. I was lucky to find it 2 days before the sale ended and managed to buy it. Wow. So, this is, and I don't know what site it is, but some site like eBay where they, do the online auctions. Just by searching the name, you found this ancestor's passport. And my guess is, obviously, since it was up for auction, this wasn't a photocopy. This was his passport. Cool. Absolutely cool. The Scottish fishery records. He was a fishery officer in early 1800s. There's another set of records that I never knew, nor did I know that there was such a thing as a fishery officer. I'm not sure if that would be the same as what we'd call a fish and wildlife officer, a game warden today, or if that was something different back then. But pretty cool. Scottish fishery records. Okay, found an ancestor via an encyclopedia article. But the article was for my ancestor's son-in-law. Okay. Okay, this is one that Devin pointed out to me. The Officer Down Memorial page. There's the only photo of my second great uncle. Second great grandfather and third to fifth cousins are there also. And Devin actually pulled this up for me. So here's the Officer Down Memorial page. They have a search for it. You can see as far as, hey, if there's something that happened this year, there's a today in history. Let me click on that just to see how far back some of these go. Oh, wow. So these go back, into 1830s. 1836, Sheriff George Hammond in St. Louis, Missouri. Constable William Mole in St. Louis. Some of them you have these pictures. So Deputy Sheriff Granville Hayden in 1873. Deputy U.S. Marshal John Speed Hamilton. So if you have ancestors that were in law enforcement that you happen to know that they died in the line of duty, then this might be a great resource. Let me go back and grab that link here and put that link in the chat for y'all. Okay, let's see here. What were some, whoops, there. Okay, Gigi on a list of the oldest homesteads in the city. This was a small Indiana town and on the library's local resource list. And my guess is that was probably, giving some information about either the original inhabitants of that homestead or the current ones, maybe even a history as far as who bought it to who, going down, but excellent resource. So in this case, your local library, you might see what there is, or the local library of whatever locale your ancestors that you're researching are from, go and see if there's any particular special resources. Because again, you're probably not going to find this on Ancestry or Family Search or MyHeritage, but you're only going to find it at that local library level. All right, Sarah says, my second great grandfather died in an asylum. I have 16 news articles from my maternal grandmother's uncle, just drunken disorderly conduct. And my paternal grandfather's paternal line is in publications on their Swiss villages that trace them back to the 1500s. Pretty neat. Would lawsuits count as regular records? Well, I guess when I think of regular records, I'll say this. I think of birth, marriage, death, census records, military enlistment records, I guess all the typical ones where you get basic information. These other records, and the thing about those basic records, I would say, is most of them are easily indexed and, pretty clear cut as far as the information you can get from them. A lot of these uncommon ones, and lawsuits in particular, is they, one, aren't necessarily always indexed. You got to go searching for them. But two, there's just a wealth of information in them, far beyond when was the person born, where did he live, anything like that. This is about them, themselves. I found evidence my ancestor had sued some people with the same name. I traveled to the Kentucky State Archives to look up the lawsuit. James had sued his mother, Mary, and his brothers because they were dragging their feet in settling the estate of their father, John. All right. I accidentally came across a surname of a female ancestor in a book I was absent-mindedly flipping through. It was the Kentucky Historical Society Library. The book included transcripts of Revolutionary War pensioners, but it was closing time and I didn't have time to look up the names in the index. So I just flipped while I chatted with a couple of people. So I shared my excitement with a couple who might have been exchanging pleasantries. Turns out the gentleman was the president of the Kentucky Genealogical Society. So we continued our chat as the library closed. We made our way to the exit. We got to the door. We saw it was raining so much, too hard, even with an umbrella, to venture out. So we stood at the door and waited. We learned that our area of research was in some of the same Kentucky counties. When I listed some surnames, we found we had a common ancestor. They knew who his parents were, where they were born, and where they were buried. Later, they mailed me copies of some records and photos of the Indiana graves. So in this case, the uncommon record was at a genealogy library or at a archive, but it happened to be chatting up with the person that was there and having the time to extend that conversation because of bad weather. Excellent example of an uncommon archive. Archive.org. Let me just go to this one real quick. Archive.org, or the Internet Archive, has excellent resource. Now they have, let's just go see is it just in books? Yeah, they have in books, there is a genealogy collection here, but really anything on the archive is fair game. This just happens to be stuff that is semi-organized. And here you can go through and you can see, hey, there's a total of 42,000 collections in the books in the genealogy section. Now, a collection, in this case, 2,000 items. In this case, 24,000 items. So there are millions of images in this source here, the Internet Archive. Doesn't hurt to go and take a look if you have not ever taken a look right there. And to follow along with that, Julie says, I found 2 books on archive.org that tell details of ancestors. Kathy says, I met my cousin just by mentioning names in Fredericksburg, Texas. So go into an area and names, name dropping, great way to meet people, see who knows stuff, and maybe find your ancestor. June says, patent records is where I found several ancestors that were inventors. Yes, the U.S. Patent Office, I believe you can go and actually search through the patent records and you can pull up the different patent records, the files. So if you have an ancestor that was an inventor, then maybe look there, or look there and see if any of your ancestors were inventors. In fact, they might have been and you just didn't know it, because that's not something that you necessarily list as your occupation as an inventor. So go ahead and check that out. Let's see. Karen says, and this is going back to that fishing thing. To fish some places in the UK, you need a license. Gaming licenses also in newspapers. So yeah, anytime that you're dealing with the government, no matter what country, some record is being created. Now, the access to these records varies, of course, by it. But when you think about all the things in just the US, not even in the UK and Canada and elsewhere, besides the census records, like you're going and getting a driver's license, but you're also going and registering your car. And, if you're registering for school, that might be one. You have the hunting licenses, depending on the state. Varying states have different laws on hunting and or fishing licenses, which may be different. for that. There are professional licenses for different careers that companies, or not companies, the different states and the different governments keep those records of, those lists of those people. So anything that you can think of that the government would make a list of, then it might be available to you to search for your ancestors. Okay. Found architect plans drawn by my great-grand-uncle on an architect teaching site. Wow. That's not where you would go to see that. But an architect teaching site, but that is pretty cool. Yeah, so M. Diane Rogers, if I can actually, because I think we have that book, I donated it to our local family search center where we work at, so I can get you the name of that book at least. And if there's any particular names you want me to look up, then send me an email, and I can snap pictures of the pages and send them to you if I can find them. All right. Patricia says, some Tennessee Supreme Court records are on the State Library and Archives website. I found an ancestor who filed for Femsol, calling her husband a reprobate, and several other names. I'm guessing that is a grant of female independence for a married woman. I'm thinking. I'm not sure what that term actually means, but based on the context, that's what I think it means. Insurance agent logbooks. Some family records passed down. One entry was about the Titanic. And I like this about the Titanic because my great-grandfather, I mentioned that he immigrated to the United States in 1912. Basically, he came over on probably the voyage before the Titanic set sail. So he was on the Olympic, is what the name of the ship was. And the whole idea with the White Star Line is they were going to have 3 ships that basically were constantly sailing between England and New York. And so with 3 ships, every single week, there would be a ship going to New York and a ship coming back from New York. And so the Titanic was the second one in that. And it just so happened that the voyage that my great-grandfather came on was the voyage over right before the Titanic set sail. So it's a good thing that he did it then, as opposed to waiting the week or 2 weeks for the next one to sail. Apprenticeship records in church records. Yeah, if the apprenticeship were paid for by the parish. Let's see, what other records do people have? Found a family grave by seeing the cemetery location on a historic map from the National Library of Scotland. Okay. So in this case, I'm guessing you didn't know where that cemetery was located, but this historic map showed you where it was, and hopefully you were able to go and actually visit that cemetery. Karen says, I found the original auction notice for our house in our local archive. That's pretty cool. And that's one thing that I've actually been meaning to do. So when we lived in New York, we lived just north of Albany, and the house that we lived in was originally built in 1850, I want to say. Now, the previous owners, they left a copy of a book about the little town that we lived in. And this book was written about 10 years before, but it included pictures that some of them were really old. And so there was actually a picture of our street from, I want to say, the 1890s. And you could see our house in it, and you could see our neighbor's house in it. And the reason why you knew it was our house was because of our neighbor's house. Our neighbors have this octagonal stained glass window on the side of their house. And so our house is next to it. And so you can see that. and the difference is that their house has basically remained relatively the same, whereas ours has had additions onto it. And so the profile of it doesn't look the same as in that picture. But it was really cool to see that because I knew that the main part of the house was from the original house. Because if you went down to the cellar, it was just logs as far as, you know, the beams across. It wasn't, you know, straight out beams. It was logs for that. And so, yeah, so we had that. And I mean, the wood floor in our house had to have been 50 or 60 years old. Because I could tell, and what was funny is originally it was carpet, and our kids were having allergies, and so one day I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna see how hard this is to rip up this carpet and replace the floor with something else. And so over one of the heater vents or whatever, I pulled it up and, you know, lifted up the edge of the carpet, and I saw that it was stained hardwood floor underneath it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm ripping this up right away, and ripped it all up. And I mean, beautiful hardwood floors. They were probably like an inch thick or so. Yeah. And what it was is like in the 70s or so, there was the 60s, 70s, sometime there's this big craze of wall-to-wall carpeting as the prestige symbol. And so they probably just put that over, not thinking that, hey, in another 20 years, it's actually going to be the hardwood floors again. That is what people want. So we got these beautiful hardwood floors from this old house. But what I've been meaning to do is actually research the history of that house and that land just to see. And so finding an original auction notice, that would be pretty neat. All right. Sean says, my grandfather was briefly a filmmaker. I found him in a list of copyright registrations for motion pictures in the 1940s. Excellent. Excellent. When I was at my hometown hall researching my ancestors, a woman came in who had a photo of my great-grandmother. She wanted to hand down to the family. Right place, right time. It's mine now. Wow. That's pretty neat, because I think there's been 3 or 4 stories that we've just talked about here of being in the right place, which you have no idea what the right place is, at the right time, that this piece of family history drops in your lap. So I like it. I really like it. It is just after 11 o'clock, and I'm hopefully going to, even though it was snowing this morning, I'm hoping that it melts and I'm going to be able to go out and do the sprinkler system stuff that I wanted to do today. But what I want you to take away from today's live stream is, don't limit yourself to just where you think any of these records are. It helps to know the names of your family, so that as you are looking at websites on other things, you know, visiting random places, those names are going to pop out to you, and you might learn something. Now, obviously, with some of the different things, if you know certain professions or run-ins with the law or anything like that, you can focus your research in that area to hopefully find the records that detail more of the lives of your ancestors, because it is these uncommon records where you are going to find that rich detail that tells you more about the person, as opposed to just events that happened in their lives. Now, if you haven't yet, click the like button on the video. If you have friends that you want to share this with, then share it with. We will try to get the links that we've put in the chat down into the comments and the descriptions. Yeah, we'll see you again, like I said, in 2 weeks. And I don't know what we're going to be talking about then. I'm hopefully trying to get a guest on that week, but I don't know yet. So, but it'll be just me again. So we'll see y'all later. Bye now.